We wanted to make an update video about the best practices you can use in Slack in the year 2020, but as you know, 2020 is not like we planned it to be. 2020 is not like 2020. How do you say that, actually? That's you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the COVID-19 experience in the last month. And when Jan and I discussed about the Slack video and our partnership that we have with Slack for several years, we came to like one thing that you have to keep in mind when you talk about best practices in Slack and how you use it. Slack as a company is not about features. Of course, there is a big feature part and it's very important, it's a collaboration tool, but the main part is that Slack is about culture, especially work culture. What I remembered is a conversation we had with Stuart Butterfield 2 years ago, summer of 2018. We sat together and after like 1 hour of podcast and conversation and talking, it dawned to me that he as a founder has a very clear image of transforming the work culture.
We try not to be too prescriptive about how people use it, and I gave that example of legal approved, which is something that evolved for us, but it also evolved. There's very, very similar things have evolved at many different customer companies.
This is why you can never disconnect a tool like Slack from your culture. So if you say, and this is also true for Microsoft Teams or any other collaboration tool, but especially Slack because they transformed the way we work a lot. If you just throw this tool onto your people and you say, here you go and now make home office and that's fine, it won't work. I give you an example. Right before the pandemic, we helped Jägermeister to introduce Slack to around about 1,000 employees. This is quite a large number. If you just go onto features and say, and congratulations, this is how you do home office from now on, nothing will transform, nothing will change. So if you look onto Slack and say, look, what does it do to the culture? This is the view that you need, especially in times of home office. So the best practices you need in 2020 is the open mind that you need to have if you want to use Slack to transform the work culture. That's the number one thing you gotta do. Because what Slack did in the last month is a lot of research work that like what do home office workers want to do differently, how does an open communication affect the workplace, and this is why they came up with the Future Forum. I checked the exact link. It's futureforum.com, very simple. And what I stumbled upon is that the claim is it's time for a leadership revolution, not evolution. And people then say, yeah, but I mean, it's just a communication tool. But there is something happening if you transform the way you lead from a closed email, hidden, door closed policy, stuff like that, to an open, very transparent, fully virtual workplace. It does something to the leadership style. So you need to make sure that your culture is adapted to Slack, but you are also open enough to adapt your culture to what Slack does to your company. Very important. If you say, oh, I know that already, good. Try it out with a large corporation. I tell you, it does something. So you go through this change process. That's the most important best practice thing in 2020. Then we discussed like what is important for home office. And for us, it's like the things that we use every single day is our one-channel Die Lage that is open to everyone, where everyone posts in the morning just a quick note about what they do over the whole company. Of course, if 1,000 people do that, that's a bit too much, so you would split that into the workplace, but into like one workplace, everyone posts what do I work on and who do I work with. This is important because especially in times of home office and we're all spread out, we need this unplanned collaboration, the stuff that you usually had when you go to the coffee machine and have a coffee together and chat about it. And what I read is that Slack in the old days had a routine that they all go for a coffee walk in San Francisco in the beginning. And a bot was posting a coffee icon, so everyone was then checking in. This coffee icon, and then we have a more chat-like experience in the morning so that everyone is like checking in. That's the most important thing for home offices if everyone is spread out. The second thing we use is, and that's different to what Slack does. Slack is featuring notifications. And at Blackboard, we are all against notifications. So we have the no notification rule. Some do it a bit more strictly, like I do it that way, and some a bit less, but overall we don't force each other to look into the channels all day long. So no notification is for us clear, meaning that we use icons like the 2x call icon. So these are our different icons. Home office, of course, very obvious. Vacation, on the road. We use WhatsApp if we're on the road, meaning that's the quicker channel, or at the office. And then this is the 2x call rule. And this meaning emergency. Meaning that you choose by yourself when you want to look into Slack, and we make sure that people are mentioned if it's important. You're not mentioned channels all day long. And the 2x call rule working the way that if you call someone 2 times in a row, you have to pick up the phone. No matter if you have the kids, if you're under the shower, if it's Christmas Eve, you pick up the phone because it says this is an emergency. This frees you from this continuous look into the channels, which is more important these days than before, because in home office everything melts together, work, private life, all that stuff. So this is number 2. Number 3, especially at home office, what we don't want is that people carry around their work devices. This is the main work device. As you know, if you follow this channel already, you know I work from the smartphone most of the time, and I want to make sure that everything I do is in an overview from the phone. So what I do is I always make sure that the most important stuff, and Slack does that automatically, if you open the app, is here already. If there would be something that I have tagged, let's say a favorite channel, it would be up here, or I could also like set up a group like hot projects, for example. This means that by opening the app, I'm not drawn into the stuff where something is mentioned, but what I can see is on the very top is the threads that we have most of the conversations in. I'll give you one example for one thread from earlier this morning. We had a conversation where I wasn't there. It was on Friday. It started with a post to have a review, and I just saw that a lot later, and I saw at the very end Insta post check, Insta story check, Facebook check. So with all the stuff in between, I don't need to read through that. I just see the end result and I say like, I'm good to go with that. Mobile first should be the default way to navigate through Slack. And then last thing I think that could be very important is what we do is in our profile pictures, as you see my picture here, you see these small icons. They're pretty small here. But if I go on someone else, which I don't do right now because it's private, what you read here, but mine I can share, we see the talents and strengths we each other have. This is from a test called Gallup Strengths Finder that we do with every new colleague. So we know what each other's strengths are. We have them on our profile pictures because now everyone knows I'm, for example, here, my number 1 strength is achiever, meaning I get a lot of reward and energy from doing stuff and getting things done. So someone who is more into like optimizing and making it perfect could then easily get into a argument with me because I say, hey, let's finish it, and the other person is a bit upset because I want to make it nice, and that's a discussion. And this is the typical way people discuss in channels like Slack, and it's a lot harder to get away the discussions and stuff when you're in the home office. If you know each other from that, and if you continuously reminder what people are like if they work at home, what's the character like, then you are much more likely to get out of this argument and say, hey, let's have a quick call, or I know why he's now upset, and then you get that from the table and can take it off the record. Very important, because all the stuff that we actually could solve at the office by just walking by at someone's desk, we now have to do remotely. So these are the best practice tools from Slack, and keep in mind, Slack is not about features, it's about work culture, and they invest a lot in changing the culture, and with the Future Forum, they show exactly why they do it and push that way. And I just invite you, like we do, we support that a lot. We are partnered with Slack at Blackboard, and are happily to help our partners and clients to also introduce tools like Slack for collaboration, because we believe we have to reshape the future of work, especially these days. So make sure you subscribe for more videos like this and leave a comment below what you think about using these tools at your company. Thanks for watching, guys.